And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who loves tricky lawyers. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And I don't mean something bad by saying tricky lawyers, by the way. I'll explain that more later. But it makes me so happy, Colonel Jeff and I, and, our doggies here at the house, and my wife are off on, we're on Milleronia again, and I love it here. It's just really terrific. And by the way, you should know that, spring is coming up on the mainland, and everyone really, picks new clothes and gets all set to fall in love and things like that. But we don't do that on Milleronia because the weather is always gorgeous. Yes, I create the weather, and yes, I insist that it always be the way it is, but it's terrific, it's beautiful, so it's not as if we wait all year for the weather to be great. We wait until I say it's great. And that may sound a little fierce to you, but that's the way it is. After all, the island's name is Milleronia, and I'm Miller. And, Colonel Jeff's code name is Onia. At any rate, though, it's just gorgeous here, just wonderful. And we don't have spring training for sports because, once again, it's always beautiful here. And they're not our kind of sport either, though. I mean, there's March Madness in basketball now on the mainland, but that's never interested me much. And I like the things we do. I like the things that our board of directors thinks about here on Milleronia. And by the way, the board of directors is, mainly me. And so I am the board of directors. In any case, it's great to be back. And I feel wonderful. As always, that music makes me feel great. And that, of course, is the Mike McDonald Orchestra and the Amy Adams Dancers, featuring boy tenor Mike Lucking, asking the musical question, in music, there are a million cover bands, so why aren't there cover comedians? Well, good question, Mike. Mike always has some thoughtful things. And the main reason why, though, I must tell you, is because it wouldn't work even for a second. Now, in music, of course, has parts that are already great in the music you love best. Well, like the melody and the harmony and the instruments, and lots of other folks can make a band and just roll those together and roll them out and make your favorite songs sound good. However, the deepest and the most important parts of comedy are the personal parts delivered by the heart and soul of the comic who wrote them. And if you imitate those, it never sounds right, and the time you spend on them is wasted. Plus, it's not funny. Other than that, now I know I'm a comedian, and I know I might be a little more sensitive about that, but I think that's true. I think the points I made are good on that. Now, by the way, older skits, they're wonderful things from the 19th century and vaudeville that are just terrific when they're relearned. Good Lord. I mean, I've thought before about doing the famous Abbott and Costello's Who's on First routine. Oh, so many of their stuff is just great. And it's wonderful. Who wouldn't like to see that? But you know what? When you can't beat something and can't even get close, let them do it forever. They own it. They should have it. It has their faces and their names right on it. Who's on first? Abbott and Costello. Slowly I turned, step by step, inch by inch, step by, I was crept up on him and I hit him, and that's a great routine that, by the way, Abbott and Costello used to do as well. And so many great comedy teams from the 20s, 30s, and 40s did. That was a classic vaudeville bit. You don't get bigger and deeper and better than that. And is it wonderful to see? Yes. For people to work on that again, it would be wonderful. And you could make it your own, add little things to it. I guess what I'm getting at, though, is when you say cover comedians doing some of your favorite stories or favorite bits and favorite parts of their act, you know what? I don't think it would work. I think it's better to stay with cover bands and afterwards go out and get a couple of drinks and then take your wife or girlfriend home. Or both of them. At any rate, good question, Mike. And you know something, by the way? I mentioned Mike McDonald there, who, God bless him, a wonderful comedian, and he just passed away just a few days ago. He was Canadian, and, well, he was a great addition to the show business firmament, and now he is literally as well. God bless you, Mike, and good luck in your next world. And by PayPal. That's right, PayPal, boy, folks, again, company, you feel better just working with them. You feel like you're saving the world yourself, and who knows, maybe you are. And PayPal, you can get there any way you want, and there are many things to do with them. If you enjoy my show, for instance, and why wouldn't you? And you'd like to send a few bucks to help out, and why wouldn't you? You can do it all through PayPal. And instead of saying donate or pay what you like or join the Platinum Committee, I always just like to say, buy us some drinks. That's the best way to help out. And you know what? There are different levels 1 through 5, all the way up to, we're driving to Florida! That makes me laugh, too. And I know I wrote it and I perform it, but you know what? That's pretty good. And that fella yelling, yes, well, he belongs on Milleronia himself, and not in a volcano. Unless, of course, he's a wiseacre. In any case, folks, every little bit you send helps us keep the old leg lamp lit. And thank you to everyone who's contributed already. What you do is you go to PayPal any way you want. You can get there on a computer, on your cell phone, on your anything you have that's electronic. We'll get you right to PayPal. But don't bother with that. Let us do it for you. Go to our website, and we'll take you there. We'll just get you there. What you do is you come to our website, which is, of course, LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the Mountain? Tom Mix. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have had the fish. But you know what, folks? It's great to let us take you there. You press our banner. You click the banner on our website that says PayPal. Then go take a nap in your lazy boy chair. You don't need even to put a ball game on. Just put a magazine over your face and tilt that chair back and enjoy your life for once in the day, okay? But do that. PayPal means a lot to us, and so do you. And that brings me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. Oh, boy. And I love this, too, as I've said, because it needs to be said again and again. There's no better gift than to pass on humor and receive humor and to just love comedy, and nothing better for that than a joke. So you know what? As always, if you like this joke, the Colonel and I do, but if you like this joke, pass it on to friends, family, loved ones, and it'll keep, the world of comedy going strong. And this is pretty good. It's there's a young blonde mother who's in her house cooking dinner, and she's got pots and pans all over the stove, and she's cooking 15 different things. And her daughter comes home from school looking a little sad, and her daughter's blonde too. And the mother says, what's wrong, honey? You look a little down in the mouth there. What's wrong? And her daughter says, Mom, why is it that, everyone thinks blondes are dumb and always says things and makes fun of us. And the mother says, you know what? I'll explain it to you right now. And takes her fist and knocks on the stove just. And her daughter says, "Oh, there's someone at the door." And the mother says, "See, that's why it happens to us our whole lives. Now, watch the pots and pans while I go see who's at the door." We got a kick out of that, and I hope you did too. Oh, again, it's funny too, because even when you start that joke and you say, well, there's a young blonde mother, there are shorthands. There are phrases that, oh, okay, so it'll be this. Let's see if this is any good. And I think that one is, and so does Colonel Jeff. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. That's beautiful. And that fella's cough isn't getting any better, though. Still, the music is fantastic. This is a lovely poem by the great Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was 1809 to 1849 he lived. He's one of those fellas who had great creative talent and didn't live that long. That's only 40 years, but, a great poet. And he was certainly known for his tales of mystery and the macabre. And he was one of the first to write short stories, by the way. That's interesting in American literature. He's also regarded as the inventor of detective fiction. So all of those things that I love, and I hope you do too, well, it was started and really moved forward by the great Edgar Allan Poe. And, by the way, he was the first well-known writer in America to try to make a living just as a writer. That hadn't happened till Edgar Allan Poe. It didn't work out that well for him. He died in poverty, but he was trying the whole time. And this is one by him called A Dream by the great Edgar Allan Poe. In visions of the dark night I have dreamed of joy departed, but a waking dream of life and light hath left me broken-hearted. Ah, what is not a dream by day to him whose eyes are cast on things around him with a ray turned back upon the past? That holy dream, while all the world were chiding, hath cheered me as a lovely beam, a lonely spirit guiding. What though that light through storm and night so trembled from afar? What could there be more purely bright in truth's day star? Isn't that lovely? A Dream by the great Edgar Allan Poe. And I hope you like it and pass it on. And that brings me to my third favorite part of the show, the Magic Movie Moment, MMM. Still the greatest piano note in history. This is a terrific movie. I've seen this many times, more than several, 5, 6, 7. This is one of those movies, when it comes on TV, on cable, you just say, well, I've got to watch this again. And it's called Charlie Wilson's War, from 2007, directed by Mike Nichols, written by Aaron Sorkin, starring Tom Hanks, Julia Roberts, Amy Adams, Ned Beatty, Philip Seymour Hoffman. What a cast. And the cast goes on and on. There's another 20 folks there who are just fabulous. And what a group, what a team who made this movie. And it's wonderful. It's fun. And one of the scenes from it is that, well, Julia Roberts is great in everything, but she plays, a very wealthy billionaires and she's in a lot of the issues and very involved in things Charlie Wilson's doing. But she's very, very cool to watch because she is in these issues and she doesn't kid around. She's always throwing some kind of get together and benefit. She's always traveling to meet the leader of this country and that, off in the Middle East somewhere. And boy, she's fun to watch. And she's tough and she's gorgeous. And she's sexy, and she's very religious, and she just loves getting all the stuff together that she does. But the magic movie moment today involves her that, well, they're all right there in a bar, and they're looking to celebrate because they just had something good happen in one of the issues they're working on there. And they're having a few drinks and then a few more, and they're all drinks, by the way. These are martini drinkers. And if you know anything about martinis, you know what that means. It means, watch out, you know the old saying about martinis. 1 is not enough, 2 is too many, and 3 is not enough. And if you know what that means, I do. Nothing truer has ever been written. But they're in kind of a cool Washington, D.C. political bar. It's not fancy, and it's late at night, and the next day they're getting on a plane and they're going to some big place with one of their issues going on, and they find out that something good has happened. The news comes down that Tom Hanks is not gonna be indicted now for his cocaine use, which was in the Cayman Islands or something, but there's no extradition, so that's something worth celebrating. And he was the first congressman, by the way, the real guy, to use young women in his office as all his assistants. And they were all gorgeous. They're beautiful, but they're really efficient. And Philip Seymour Hoffman works for the CIA in the movie, and he has a good funny moment trying to pick up Julia Roberts, and she is tough as nails and fun to watch. And they all realize, wow, that's good news. Okay, so they're getting up to go. They've had enough to drink, and Tom and Philip are in the lead, and Julia Roberts walks past the other 4 or 5 young women who are just beautiful, or in the main part of the bar there, and there's no one else there. And Roberts just walks by in profile, and they're just looking at her walk by, and she just says to them, sluts. And she hits that in a way, folks, that no one else could. Just the word sluts. And that just stops them in their tracks, and they just, and wow, that was, the billionaire financier. And that moment, boy, oh boy, again, Julia Roberts is great in everything she does. And I've worked with her a couple of times, come to think of it. And that's, I thought that was pretty great too. But you know what? When she hits that ball, sluts, it's a great written line and well directed, well blocked. And it's a heck of a magic movie moment for this one. See the movie. If you haven't, see Charlie Wilson's War. It's a lot of fun and very meaningful. And I'll see it again anytime. I hope you will too. And you know what? It reminded me, I've been having dreams of my dad and grandfather and me. And my dad and grandfather have passed on. And the dreams are of their starting something else there in the next world in heaven. And it's a whole operation that they're getting going. And they're waiting for me to join them in it. And I believe that. And I'm really looking forward to it. And as Colonel Jeff said, though, not right away. I don't want to join them in 7 weeks. Hopefully that's many, many years from today. And, and my mom is, I've had dreams about before a couple of times, but she's not with them because my sister and I both thought when she passed on that she was immediately assigned as the commander of a whole other galaxy, that she was right up there, well, in God's universe. And he just said, nice to see you. Hug your parents, see the river, but time to go. And it reminded me, what did my parents mean to me? And what do I want to mean to my kids? That's, well, I hope you know how important that is. My parents meant everything to me. They were great people, tough as nails, and they're from Brooklyn, and boy, they were, well, tough families and tough people, and they weren't afraid of anything. And they were, here's another interesting thing, they were completely honest. That may not sound like much, but I mean, they were, God bless them, they never took a penny from anyone. There's nothing criminal about them. My dad, as a lawyer, by the way, was once appointed to be head of the New York City Housing Authority, the whole legal department. That's a big job. And that's a big appointment and a big honor. And he didn't last long, though. He only lasted 6 months because that's one of those, well, that's one of those organizations where they come to you within the first few weeks and say, okay, great. Nice to meet you, Mr. Miller. And we're having a new shipment we just ordered coming in for desks. And see, these guys used to, well, steal a lot from their deals. And my dad never did. And he said to them, you know what? Thank you, but I don't take anything like that. And you shouldn't either, by the way. But if you're going to do that, do me a favor and just leave me out of it. And don't let me know when things like that are going on. And he said he wasn't going to have them, wasn't going to turn them in or have them arrested. But crooks, remember, criminals never trust someone who's not a criminal too. They never do. And they can't trust that. And they all began to kind of look over at him and just say, you know what? This guy's got to go. And so that's an example of, well, my mom and dad and how much they meant to me about that. My dad, by the way, was a great trial lawyer, truly great. And he used to represent, especially in the first 10, 20 years of his career, criminals. He would, not big time ones. They were big time, but my dad would say to them, he would represent them for free. And these are, well, local mob guys in New York. And he represented them for free. And he always got their sentences somehow. He always knew how to have them reduced. Before sentencing, they knew, and he had told them that, well, instead of 8 to 10 years, it was now 3 to 5 years at one of the prisons, in upstate New York. And so they knew, they really respected Mr. Miller, and they knew he was honest. And one of those, in fact, these stories are great because they're true. In the federal courthouse in New York and Manhattan. Now, you've seen it. I've filmed things there. You've seen it 100 times. It's got the big columns and the 50 steps going up to it. You've seen it all the time, even as trials are going on in there. And he was with one of his groups he used to call the gang that couldn't shoot straight. They were good, they were criminals, but they were never that good at it. They were just, they had one of the guys called the head of it, Boss. The boss was called the Boss. But it was one of those, again, like from the 50s, of, hey, boss! And they wore dark shirts and lighter ties. I mean, they looked like all the, gang guys you'd see on TV and in the movies in the 50s. And so they were convicted. They're about to be sentenced. And my dad's with them, and they went down to have lunch before the sentencing in the courthouse. And this is a protected area. This is down a few floors, and this is run by guards and cops who are armed, and they're on the balconies there, and they're all looking down, and they're all walking through there, and they're not kidding around. They're not there because it's a joke. And the boss, so my dad's with them. He's leading. They're going down to cafeteria-style food, and the head of them, the boss, is walking down, then three other guys. And as my dad said, he glanced back and he noticed they're stealing everything. Everything they want. It was like that scene from Animal House, but even way more so. They're putting sandwiches in their pockets, wrapped sandwiches, and picking up a plate of Jell-O and just and eating that and putting the plate back on the shelf. Now, my dad thought, the place is armed. We're in the courthouse. You're about to be sentenced. Couldn't you just let it go for now? And they're taking everything in sight and moving along with their trays, and, they wind up paying for a glass of Coke or something. And as they're going down, the boss sees my dad looking at this, and he leans over to him, and he just said, "Hey, Mr. Miller, we're crooks." And that explanation, my dad looked at him, and, well, it seemed to make sense, that, oh, so you mean this is what you are, and you don't stop what you are. But he didn't say, he just saw that, he looked at them, and they said, all right. And they continued on their way and sat down and had lunch, and then went up to get sentenced. But you know what? God bless them. My folks were the sweetest, toughest, most honest people in the world. And my dad, by the way, had a lot of the criminals come to our house because he insisted he wouldn't, as I mentioned, he didn't charge them for anything. They knew he was going to get them better sentences, a reduced sentence. But he said the price on their end is they have to go straight. He insisted, are you ready for that? I want you to go straight. I want you to stop doing all this stuff and just get out of it. And, you're big boys. You can do that. Well, big boys, they were in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they were very prominent. And they were well known for, being able to do a crossword puzzle with one hand and strangle a guy with the other. And so he had them come to our house, and I didn't mind. The kids didn't mind, and my mother thought it was a good idea. And, well, Daddy is helping these fellas and straightening them out. And one I remember, I'm just making these names up because, well, there's no reason to say their real names. And there's an interesting fact about that because one of them was Tom Allen. And you may say, well, wait a minute, that sounds like a guy in a clothing catalog. It doesn't sound like a big gangster mafia guy. Well, that was a phony name. He changed the name. His real names ended in vowels, and he didn't want to. He wanted to be known as Tom Allen. He was getting out, and he was going along with what my dad said. And he used to come to the house, and because my dad, with these guys, would very often teach them to read because they couldn't read, and they couldn't. Well, they didn't know their letters, but he didn't. He helped teach them that, and he would always say to me, "Go get a couple of your comic books," and that was he would give them those when they went home because they would come to the house 4 or 5 times. And I thought that was great. I didn't, but wait, they're my comic books. That's a new Green Lantern, but I didn't care because I just quietly did that with them because it was helping to teach them to read. And Tom was, boy, this was a tough guy. And he looked it too. He made Luca Brasi look like Pat Boone. And, okay, so when you glanced at him, this is not the guy you wanted to say, I don't have the money today. This is not the kind of thing you wanted to say. And Tom decided he wanted to be a poet. So and again, who's going to tell him no? And he would write these stanzas of poems, and I thought they were great because he wrote them by hand, and they all rhymed. Well, remember, I was a kid. And I didn't know one thing from another. I just said, wow, that's great. And they rhyme. To me, that was a big thing. And so he gave me one once, And he didn't charge because he was normally charging people $10 per poem. And whenever he'd go to work, you put work in quotes, by the way, whatever he was doing, had done or was about to do, each of the guys would buy one of his poems for $10. Now, what happened right after that? Take a guess. But nobody ever refused buying the poem, and he gave me one. And he came, I remember one day he came, and he had a transistor radio in his shirt pocket. You may remember that style, that look from 61 or so, or 62. And he had it in his pocket, and a shirt pocket. And I said, wow, that's great. What is it? Is that a transistor radio? I thought everything was terrific, because to me, everything was like James Bond. If I saw a transistor radio, I thought, wow, that's like James Bond. I don't know how I thought of that, but I did. And Tom said he took the radio out of his pocket with these hands that were, again, like, God bless him, they were like Andre the Giant. And he said, you want it? I said, oh, I don't know if I should. He said, no, this is all right. He said, I was on the street on the corner there with a couple of my men, and this truck, a big transistor radio truck, comes by. But the driver was, he was being chased, and he didn't, he was nervous, so he kind of hit up on the curb with the tires. Well, you know something? Those doors in the back flung open. This is a 40-foot truck, and cases came out with all these radios in them. And luckily my men were there. I said, whoa, let's go catch that guy and tell him, he lost all his radios there. But he was already far away, and the guys chasing him, well, they were chasing him. And so my men, just got all the cartons of the radios and put them up onto the sidewalk there. So I got thousands of them now. So this one is yours. You know what? I was so thrilled. That's unbelievable to me. And later that night, my parents said to me, oh, what's that? Where'd you get that? I said, well, Mr. Allen gave it to me. And they both stopped and looked at me and said, hey, what? And I said, it's okay. It's fine. It's nothing, stolen or anything. I mean, and I told them the story, and my mom said to me, because my parents are from, well, they were as tough as they could be. And my mom said to me, wait a minute, are you telling us these fell off a truck? And I said, yeah. And it was so good, because she kind of, tears filled her eyes, and she came over and hugged me, but it was with a smile. And my dad also kind of rubbed my head. And see, to them, my mom said to my dad, remember when we first heard that and believed it too? And from their childhood, and he nodded and smiled, and that's what they were so happy about, that their son had just heard for the first time, no, these fell off a truck, and bought it, believed it, and I said, what? But I trusted them, and they said, yeah, you'll have to give it back. And, oh, why? But I knew they would always guide me right. And my dad saw Tom later at his next visit, when he was teaching him to read. And my dad saw him and just said, did you give this to my kid, to Larry? And Tom said, yeah, why, what's up? Yeah, wow, he liked it. He really liked it. And my dad said, did you tell him they fell off a truck? And Tom laughed and, oh, he bought that, huh? My dad said, yeah, it was his first time. And my dad was smiling his smile again, and Tom was smiling his smile. He said, Mr. Miller, you got a good kid there, and you raise him good too, see? Look at this, a house. And so that's, well, folks, you know what? That's what it meant to have my parents. And I loved them so much, and I still do. And I still have dreams about them, and I will for a long time till I'm together again with them many, many years from today. I hope you feel the same way about yours and know the same things, because you and I know a lot of the same things. We know that Homer is Homer and Pluto is a planet. So remember, folks, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to and someone there who cares about you, folks, the game's over and you've won. And that's sure true today, with or without a transistor radio. Be well, and we'll see you here next time.